It doesn't matter where you're from, or if you're young or woman or man, we're here for the same reason.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Good evening and welcome to the special focus. My name is Zahid Jadwat and we are together right up until 8 p.m. just like we are on every Tuesday night right here on Salam Media. Of course, via our live stream www.salammedia.com/lesson-live on our Facebook page and on our YouTube page. Thank you so much for tuning in this evening. If you would like to get in touch with us, you know how to send your comments. And even if you just don't want to comment, just a message to let us know that you are tuned in and enjoying the show would be highly appreciated. So you know how to get in touch with us. You can send a WhatsApp text message to 061 766 0355. Alternatively, you can tweet and tag at Salam Media, and don't forget to use the hashtag the special focus. You can also drop your comment below on our Facebook or YouTube live, and I do understand we are going live on Twitter as well, so you can drop your comment below there. And now, coming up on the show tonight, so corruption. Now, is this a pandemic of its own? It sure does seem like one, since there have been reports of corruption all over the world, in most parts at least, and that, of course, includes South Africa. So how exactly do these, so to say, shady deals take place in the alleys? Of course, that's metaphorically speaking. That's what we're going to find out tonight. So at around 7:30 p.m. tonight, you can expect to hear from our main guest for tonight. That is Professor Thuli Madonsela. She was the public protector up until 2016, and she had authored the investigation into state capture, in fact, under President Jacob Zuma. Of course, she had written extensively on corruption, but she'll be joining us at about 7:30, so in a few minutes' time. Before that, though, we are going to speak to Matthew Parks. He's the parliamentary coordinator at COSATU, that's the Congress of South African Trade Unions, and he'll be telling us just how corruption affects you and I as citizens. Right now, though, we are going to be joined by Chris Gilili, who is an investigative journalist at Amabungane. He's going to put the discussion into context for us and explain to us just exactly how corruption gets uncovered and how these corruption gets exposed in the public domain. So he's going to join us now. Do we have Mr. Chris Gilili at the moment? I see he's just joined us. Thank you for joining us this evening, Chris.
Thank you for having me, Zahid, on the show, and good evening to you and the listeners.
Indeed, it is a pleasure having you on the show this evening. But unfortunately, the discussion that we are having tonight, not so pleasurable because, of course, it is not a very good thing to be speaking about. Of course, corruption. It's not something we'd like to have in our country at the moment, especially now when our citizens need the leaders more than ever. So how now, of course, you've been following corruption during the COVID-19 pandemic, especially. How was this alleged corruption in the procurement of medical equipment to aid South Africa's fight against the coronavirus? How was it identified?
Thank you for that question you're posing, Zahid. Of course, partly I've been reporting on corruption, in fact, on the whole COVID-19 pandemic since it came to our shores in South Africa. But I would like to also, the president of South Africa, Cyril Ramaphosa, recently indicated that as a government, they would be taking cases of corruption that are being leveled against government officials. They will be taking these cases to the SIU, which is the Special Investigations Unit for further investigation. And also the ANC in Gauteng province has also expressed its concern on this avalanche of corruption cases that have been leveled up against leaders within the public sector, which is leaders under the ANC government. So I think the corruption that mostly implicates government officials per se in one way or the other, most of the time for certain journalists, it gets revealed because of tip ops. I mean, for example, in our cases, Amapungane, most of the stories that we cover, they generally come from tip ops, which is from individuals, from researchers, from people who work within the civic society. So when they come
Yeah.
across some dodgy dealings, and even in some cases, even from people that work within government itself, like people who are disgruntled with the system and how the system runs. So these people, they talk to journalists and in secret under the guise of being anonymous sources, and whereby they
Yeah.
reveal everything they know that there is about this
Yeah.
corruption.
So when you do get these tip-offs from people working in that space, what exactly do you then do as a journalist? Of course, you have to verify the story. In fact, to make sure that it is a proper claim and it's not baseless before you
Mhm,
publish anything.
mhm, mhm. Definitely, but I would think that question could be answered on a basis of publication to publication, because
Mm.
for for publications that do more longer in depth and feature like investigations, we find that the
Yeah.
process starts with, after getting this information, it starts with you forming up a hypothesis on what is it there that is not known really by the public. So you just look for those loopholes, and then now it's a matter of sitting down and then uh, and just strategizing and thinking about the kind of questions that you would like to have answered, and fires that corruption is but the bigger picture is always the fact that you want to reveal like corruption, you want to expose corruption in its original nature. So now it also goes to questions of you as a journalist having the duty of having to protect even your own sources. Because now, if someone is saying he's got this expose and he's got all the backing documentation, it only lies within your interest, in most cases, in stories of highly investigative nature, that you have the duty to protect that source by not revealing their names within that story. So it's a matter of taking the story and taking it to the newsroom, pitching it up there, and then you look at the hypothesis and what's the best angle that there is to that story and how interesting it is to the public.
Mhm. And if you've just tuned in, remember that this is the special focus. My name is Zahid Jadwat, and we are speaking about corruption this evening. Later on, we will be joined by Professor Thuli Madonsela, who is the former Public Protector of South Africa, and we'll also be speaking to Matthew Parks, who is the Parliamentary Coordinator at COSATU. But right now, we are discussing corruption, and we are speaking to Mr. Chris Gilili, who is a journalist at Amabungane. Lots of work being done there at Amabungani, exposing these alleged corruption scandals. So, Mr. Galili, what exactly do you believe is your role as a journalist now, unpacking these alleged stories of alleged corruption?
I'm not sure if I'm, but is the question that what is the role of us as investigations journalists
Yeah,
in a time like this?
yeah.
Okay, okay. No, firstly, journalists, or I mean, the media and journalism in general, as it's known as the fourth estate, it has the duty of being a watchdog for society.
Mhm.
Now, journalists, especially investigative journalists in this context, they have the duty to go in depth in their investigative work, and then in order to try and hold the powerful into account, be it uncovering corruption in government or in the corporate sector, or wherever it might be appearing in society. And then
Yeah,
I think investigative journalism as a craft, it plays a very crucial role in bringing allegations of corruption to into the light, into the knowledge. So that's the first duty of it as a profession. And then now and then the media, I think also generally they are amongst and as your question says, investigative journalists, they are amongst the most important sources to bring awareness of the public to the public about corruption. And we've seen a rise recently of not-for-profit organizations that are doing journalism that is interesting, that exposes rot within government, within the corporate sector. I would mention in this case some publications such as Amapungane, where I'm at, and we've seen also there's Ground Up now, which is in Cape Town, that also does a lot of interesting journalistic work on the ground, and it's not funded by government, and it doesn't solicit any funding from government in any form, whether in advertising or donations. So we've seen that rise of those not-for-profit organizations, and like recently there was ROT that was in the National Lottery Commissions that has been uncovered by Ground Up. I think, if I'm not mistaken, it has been work of the past 2 years that was done by journalists in that publication. They well documented how apparently the National Lottery Commission, which is supposed to act as a funder to worthy causes, the commission normally coughs up billions of rands for worthy causes throughout the country. But then now the investigation by Ground Up revealed how now this organization that is supposed to be funding these worthy for causes has been apparently implicated in other dodgy dealings, whereby the money is siphoned and channeled to places where it is not needed at all, and willy-nilly so. And then it also became a war because the NLC denied these allegations leveled by Ground Up, and then filed for a lawsuit which dragged for a while, but eventually Ground Up won the case.
All right.
So now,
Mr. Chris Gilili, yeah, if you'd just like to wrap up on that, as you were saying.
so now that I think for my part, I would say that journalism needs more support now more than ever, especially at a time where now media houses, we're seeing them losing sales, we're seeing them letting go of potential staff because they are not making any monies. So I would say journalism needs more support from philanthropic people, individuals, philanthropic organizations to continue doing these exposes, because this is not the first time. Now, we recently had state capture, which also showed us how this country was run by the president working together with benefiting one family, which is the Gupta family, and that story went on to win the Global Shining Light Award in Germany last year. So now this tells you of the role of journalism and the need for journalism, because I think it is only when journalism as a craft thrives that we can hold people accountable and bring integrity and ethics within our government. Because I believe that where you have leaders that don't have integrity and any sense of self-worth, then you are running a chance of having ethics that just fly out the window, and then people will just do as they please because they are controlled by greed, and not by sense of country or serving the people and in any way. Yeah.
All right. Interesting discussion here that we are having about corruption, and unfortunately, time is up. We've now got to introduce our next guest. So thank you so much for your time, Mr. Chris Gilili.
Thank you, Zaid. Thank you for having me on the show. Thank you.
It's been a pleasure. And now we are going to be speaking to Mr. Matthew Parks, who is the parliamentary coordinator at COSATU. That's the Congress of South African Trade Unions. I'm hoping that he is in the studio right now. Do we have Mr. Parks? Okay. Thank you. Welcome to the show, Mr. Parks.
Good evening. Thank you for having me.
Indeed, it's a pleasure having you on the show. Now, I was reading an article this morning wherein it was reported that members of the Standing Committee on Public Accounts, that SCOPA, said that they found what looked like an abandoned site when they arrived at a dysfunctional wastewater treatment plant in Ottosdal in the Swang municipality, where the Nkaka Mudiri district municipality had supposedly spent 8.5 million rand on the refurbishment of the plant. And it gets worse, the report goes on to state that two companies possibly paid for the same job. So what is your response to recent allegations of corruption during the COVID-19 pandemic? This exact story, which I just mentioned just now, is just one of the many cases which we are hearing at the moment. And this, of course, at a critical time. We are in the middle of a pandemic. pandemic, and government's response is crucial to the people here, the citizens on the ground. So this is just one of the stories. So what is your response to the many stories which we are hearing, the allegations of corruption?
Yeah, no, thanks. I mean, look, it's quite heartbreaking. We are really a sick nation. It seems that everything goes. We're willing to steal anything, even a pandemic which threatens the lives of hundreds of thousands of workers, which threatens millions of workers' jobs. Even during that era, we're willing to steal everything. It's quite shameful. We're becoming known as a nation of thieves, of a corrupt, sick society, and it has an immediate impact upon ordinary people. So during the whole PPE scandal, the impact is threefold, basically, on ordinary workers. So when you steal money from government, it means government's got less money to buy protective equipment to make sure that workers, consumers, learners, teachers, etc. are safe. So you're putting their lives at risk. When you provide poor quality, substandard masks to government, for example, to the hospitals, it means that nurses and doctors, paramedic, pathology workers, cleaners, etc., who are working in these healthcare institutions, they believe that they are protected from this virus. But in fact, the quality of the mask given to them doesn't protect them at all. So you're exposing them to becoming infected, to possibly die, to infecting their families. Equally,
And
when
of course,
you
yeah.
Go ahead. No, I was also just
Okay.
going to say the last thing is that when you break the Treasury regulations about buying these PPEs, they're meant to be made locally according to the Treasury regulations. But I said what happens when you give it to the politicians' families to go and buy, they often import them from overseas, from China, for example, at a cheaper cost. So you're thus also threatening local jobs, so we need to save every single job we have.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, the quality of these equipment that are being purchased is often quite inferior and at a cheaper price. But of course, when it comes to tenders, we know that there are many allegations of prices being inflated as well. That's outrageous, isn't it?
Yes, and we had warned Treasury about this in April, that our clothing workers union SACTU had done a lot of work, had priced the production of these masks at about 15 Rand in the factories locally, meeting the specific requirements of government and the Department of Health. Treasury in its regulations put the price up to 26 Rand. So it means they were losing 11 Rand already from the beginning on every single mask. Now, this is the very same Treasury which says they don't have enough to give public servants, including healthcare workers, their inflationary increase for 2020. So you have money to give to politicians' families to get rich, to engage in corruption, but you don't have money to give a nurse a simple, small little inflation increase for 2020. So there's a direct correlation, and really it has become a national disgrace.
Indeed. And of course, as you mentioned, some of the impacts of corruption is that when these PPE are being procured, we often getting inferior quality at the public hospitals and because of the cheaper prices. But of course, somebody is making money. That's the allegation as it goes. But what are some of the other socioeconomic impacts on the general citizenry of South Africa, on you and I as citizens?
Sure. Look, many of our problems right now are linked to the issue of corruption and wasteful expenditure. Government says it doesn't, for example, have money to pay public services increase. It doesn't have money to roll out many things, and now it has to borrow from overseas. That's going to hit us in future because government will have less money for public services because it will be spending more servicing the debt. But yet at the very same time, according to the Auditor General, we lose about 10% of our budget every year to corruption and wasteful expenditure. That's 150 billion Rand. Eskom has been driven into the ground because of wasteful expenditure and corruption. Its debt level is 484 billion Rand right now, and half of that is really due to wasteful expenditure and corruption. Now, when Eskom goes into load shedding because of a lack of investment and maintenance over many years, because of corruption, it kills the economy. Every time they go into load shedding, as we were in the beginning of the year, we were losing about 13 billion Rand every single day in the economy. That's workers' jobs, that's economic growth. So it really hits a huge spectrum. SAA, SABC, Denel have been broken because of corruption. We have about 29 municipalities which can't pay workers on time because of corruption mismanagement. The example you gave in the Northwest about a sewage treatment plant, again, So really, it is eating into the fabric of every part of our lives, into the state, into the economy, into workers' lives, into their jobs, into their education. Education right now we can't open public schools because for years we've not invested in decent sanitation infrastructure, and frequently, again, because of corruption. There's examples of a school in Eastern Cape. Money was paid. When the provincial legislature went to inspect the school, there was no school anywhere to be seen. So really, it is a pandemic which is equal to corona, which is destroying our country.
Indeed. And also now President Cyril Ramaphosa has set up a ministerial committee to investigate alleged corruption in state tenders relating to the procurement of medical equipment during the COVID-19 pandemic. What do you make of the formations of such committees? Do you think we'll get anything from these committees?
Look, what we understand from that committee is it's been set up with one task, what we were told, which is to publish the full list of who got tenders for PPEs. If that's the case, that's fine, let them publish it. But what we really want to see is not another ministerial committee. They can do whatever they want, it's fine. We really want to see the police, the National Prosecuting Authority, the Special Investigation Unit going after those who have looted the state dry. We estimate with regards to the PPEs that we've lost between 1 and 2 billion rand because of corruption and wasteful expenditure. So can we simply start arresting these people? We all know who they are. It's widely known. It's been published in all over the Sunday papers. We've had 4 commissions of inquiry into corruption and state capture. Yet we've not seen one single politician, manager, family member, or whomever, business person being arrested. It really sends a message to society that if you steal, it's fine, there's no consequences to you. So then why should we expect ordinary persons to abide by the law if the powerful don't believe they're bound by the law?
Why should we expect ordinary citizens to abide by the law when the people in power don't really do that? That is quite a powerful message which you leave us with. Thank you so much for your time, Mr. Matthew Parks.
Cool. Thank you for having me.
Indeed, it's a pleasure having spoken to Mr. Matthew Parks, who is the parliamentary coordinator at COSATU, speaking to us about corruption, especially during the COVID-19 pandemic. And he's speaking to us about the impact of corruption and how this affects you and I as citizens. We need to take a quick ad break. Remember that you can send us your comments via WhatsApp, 061-766-0355. I'll just repeat that number quickly. It's 061-766-0355. Alternatively, you can tweet and tag @SalamMedia, and don't forget to use the hashtag The Special Focus. Right now, we have to take a break, and when we get back, we will be speaking to Professor Thuli Madonsela, who is the former Public Protector of South Africa. Please do stay tuned.
With over 80 years of experience, IG Hussein and Company are renowned for their quality Islamic wear and goods. IG Hussein and Company stock a variety of Islamic items, musallas, kitabs, Medina dates, perfumes and exclusive gifts. We guarantee you a unique and friendly shopping experience for the entire family. Visit our new branch in Overport at 202 Kenilworth Park, Brickfield Road. Open 7 days a week with ample parking and wheelchair friendly. Like us on Facebook or Instagram at IG Hussein for our latest promotions and updates. IG Hussein and Company, your Islamic lifestyle.
Dad, well, I've been chatting with an investment broker today and...
Broker? Did the broker tell you that our economy is a mess? There's bushfires in Australia, America wanted World War III, and now the coronavirus is traveling around the world.
Well, I also thought about purchasing some crypto.
Crypto? What's that, like another pyramid scheme? I don't trust what I can't see.
There's an apartment in Belito.
So only a family will be asking to stay there for free. And what if the government takes it away, eh?
Dad, I don't think it works like that.
I'll tell you what works. Gold. At your age, I invested in gold coins and it paid for your university fees and your wedding. No contracts, no agreements. Your investment is in your hands and you own it. With a 70% growth in only 5 years, do you still doubt gold investment? Contact RJ Coin today, 031 202 4701, or visit them at 151 Stephen Lamini Road in Musgrave, Durban. Randery Jewelers Gold Coin Exchange, your passport to gold investment.
Would you like to give Sadaqah 365 days a year? You can with the Al Imdad Foundation's Daily Sadaqah program. Donate as little as R1 a day for a month for each member of your family, up to any specified amount. and receive monthly feedback on where your contributions have made a difference. Visit alimdad.com and download your daily Sadaka debit order form or call 0861 786 243 for more information.
Shimmer, sparkle, captivate. Nothing less than a masterpiece. Droplets of gold inspires precious design. Platinum bursts with intricate freshness, and every pure diamond becomes more than just a girl's best friend. Voda Gold Gem Jewelers, where timeless dreams become a reality. Come to us. We tailor-make designer gold, platinum, and diamond jewelry. Trade in or remodel your old gold. Clad yourself with classy name-branded watches. We offer insurance valuation and freezer card calculation. Visit us at 534 Ridge Road, Overport, or call 031 208 9142. Voda Gold Gem Jewelers, manufacturers of fine gold and diamond jewelry.
Nature's Blends Black Seed, Kalonji, Sunnah and Hadith Benefit Remedy. Nature's Blends has a variety of natural products to help you take control of your life. Key ingredients being black seed oil, cod liver oil, glucosamine, turmeric, black seed and Yemeni cedar honey. Add this to your favorite foods or mix with cedar honey to improve health. Black seed has a lot of benefits. Just to mention a few, it's antibacterial, anti-ulcer, anti-inflammatory, and pain-killing, etc. For more information or to order, contact Shakir Kassem on 082 777 8696 or email shakir222@icloud.com or follow at Shakir_ABC on Instagram for all your Sunnah remedy needs. Nature's Blends, bringing nature's finest.
Welcome back. You are tuned into Salam Media. This is the special focus with myself, Zahid Jadwat. Tonight, our conversation is all about corruption, and it seems to be a pandemic of its own, and unfortunate as well. It seems unfortunate that there are still some people out there who are more interested in personal gain rather than helping out people, especially at this time when many people are in dire hardship at the moment. And so now we are joined by Professor Thuli Madonsela, who was the former public protector of South Africa. And remember, you can join the discussion. You can send us a WhatsApp message to 061 766 0355. Alternatively, you can tweet and tag at Salam Media using the hashtag the special focus. Right now, let's welcome Professor Thuli Madonsela, who is the former public protector of South Africa.
Good evening, and thank you for this privilege to you and to the viewers.
It is actually a privilege to have you on the show, Ms. Madonsela. But now to begin with, help us understand how prevalent is corruption in South Africa. What are we dealing with when we discuss corruption in South Africa?
Let's start with what is corruption. Transparency International describes corruption as abuse of entrusted power for personal gain. The South African law, the key law in South Africa, is the Prevention and Combating of Corrupt Activities Act. And in summary, it regards corruption as perverse and dishonest use of entrusted power to advantage someone in order to gain gratification for yourself. What does that mean? It means you've been given power by the people of South Africa as a public servant, as a politician, or as anybody who works for government, or you work for a company or for an NGO. You then use your position and your ability to make decisions to advantage someone so that that person can advantage you back. And the way they could advantage you could be they pay you back money, or they pay school fees for your child, university fees, or they send you on a holiday abroad, or they vote for you politically. It's just anything that you do to trade public power for personal gain. And it has become, well, corruption has reached pandemic levels in South Africa. And pandemic, you mean that the level at which it's happening, it is high, it is increasing very fast, and it feeds on other core determinants of corruption, so to speak, which would be bad governance, failure to follow treasury regulations, and failure to manage conflict of interest.
And you've actually served as the public protector right up until 2016, I think since 2009. So do you think that the public perception of corruption in government actually aligns with the situation on the ground?
It does. It's often said that South Africans don't care about corruption. They do. I remember when I was public protector, there was somebody who tweeted that they just bribed a traffic officer and they had only paid 10 Rand. Within hours, Twitter was on the attack or on an attack mode, and they withdrew that. It does mean that people do care about corruption. However, there's a part here, in that people are happy to fight corruption as long as it is not done by somebody who's going to benefit them. The corrupt person throws crumbs in my, I am going to defend corruption, and that's how they roll, corrupt people in our country. Also, there's something that we refer to as petty corruption. That is something like bribing a traffic officer, bribing somebody at Home Affairs, bribing a clerk of court to move your case forward or to make a file disappear. Often people don't see that as corruption, but it is corruption, and it starts small, and then we become very indifferent to it, such that even when big things happen, such as stealing COVID miners, we're not as outraged as we should be. Although I do think that Africans are outraged over the stealing of COVID miners.
Yeah. So, what role does the general public have to play in the fight against corruption? And we have many public campaigns as well against corruption. Are these effective?
Some of them are. The fact that we know, for example, that COVID monies may have been and that tenders were inflated, and that people who are related to people in government got tenders, even though before COVID-19 they didn't run companies that specialize in the areas of PPE. The fact that we know that is because they were us, which means to a certain extent the system is functioning, and there are people who are being held accountable right now, that people have been suspended, or there are people who have also stepped aside on their own. That means the system is working. However, I do think that for the system to work better, we do need to protect whistleblowers better, or even consider rewarding them through what they call bounty laws, where all monies that are recovered, we give a percentage back to whistleblowers. We do need to do that. And two, we need to take immediate action against people who violate treasury rules. Because the very fact that this happened is not only because people are corrupt, it's because people did not operate within the law. A company that was formed shortly before the tender went out should never have been considered. The companies that hospitals have been trading with on PPEs, those are the companies that government should have traded with.
Yeah, and of course now President Cyril Ramaphosa has set up a ministerial committee to look into alleged corruption in state tenders relating to the procurement of PPE during the COVID-19 pandemic. There is a perception that that in South Africa investigations into corruption are generally wasteful. because at the end of the day, these ministers have got to be paid. Investigators have got to be paid. Investigators at the SIU have got to be paid. And so there's this general perception, just how I feel it, is that we are now spending. Okay, so corruption has cost us a few billion, and then on that same corruption scandal, we are going to spend another few hundred million, a few millions perhaps, on that investigation. So is that perception accurate?
It is accurate. The cost of recovering public funds should not exceed the amount of public funds that we recover. There is something wrong with our investigation methods. But that said, there is a lot of value that is being added through these investigations. We just need to make sure that, for example, one of the things that I'm beginning to think of is that there should be permanent regulations for commissions of inquiry. And we can learn from inquisitorial systems in Europe on how to conduct an inquisitorial inquiry in an efficient way, where people don't just come and go and come again to give evidence, and that by the time you ask people to answer questions, you've done a thorough job of investigating yourself. But we are getting value. Secondly, what I do think can work better is bounty laws, because bounty laws are not going to pay a cent. A firm of attorneys that believes that it can investigate a matter having received information from a whistleblower is given a certificate to do that investigation. If it investigates successfully and enables government to recover a certain portion of the public funds that have been stolen, that firm can be given a portion of the recovered money. For example, some states in the US can give you about 25% of the recovered money if it was the equivalent of the NPA that did the prosecution. And if you do prosecute on your own because the NPA refused to prosecute, you can get up to 40% of the money. And I do think that we've reached that point that we shouldn't waste money on commissions of inquiry. And I do know that I ordered one. But I think given the pandemic proportions of corruption and the time it takes to uncover these truths, it's better that we go for bounty laws. And we also go for better protection of whistleblowers.
Yeah, so just to clarify, at the moment, what is it exactly that you are saying regarding whistleblowers? Are they safe at the moment in South Africa?
They are protected. We have an act that is called the Protected Disclosures Act that enables whistleblowers to report a matter to the Public Protector, Auditor General, and other institutions that have been added. And the Act says that once you have made a protected disclosure, you should not be subjected to an occupational detriment. And that means you can't be fired. And we do know that nobody fires you because you whistle blew. They're going to fire you for using too much toilet paper or something as ridiculous as that. And courts have pierced through that, through those charades where people are being fired for the flimsiest of reasons, and they have reinstated whistleblowers. We remember Mike Chishonga, for example, whistleblew about theft of children, of monies of orphans in at the master's office. And us as the Public Protector, we returned to work several whistleblowers who were fired for flimsy reasons that really had nothing to do with their whistleblowing, but it was the leverage that those in power used to get them out of the system.
Now, I'm just beginning to wonder now, in the tender procurement processes, that's where a lot of the alleged corruption supposedly takes place. And as we've been speaking about this before you came on air, in fact, we were speaking about this with Mr. Matthew Parks about how certain tenders are given where items are procured at really low prices, where the quality is often inferior, but the price tag on that for a government tender is often inflated. and that's how the allegation goes. So where's the loophole here in the tender procurement processes? What is it that's causing corruption to thrive in this case?
The loophole is not in the law, it is in compliance. For example, what happened or what is alleged to have happened should never have happened. Because even if you do emergency procurement, you still have to start with people who are already in your system and say who in the system are companies that normally provide you with PPEs. Hospitals, for example, are starting to use masks because there's COVID-19. They're not starting to use sanitation, hand sanitizer or liquid soaps. All of these have been used. So the starting point should have been those companies that provide this. And that does two things. It allows you to minimize the risk of non or poor performance, because these are people you know that if they do something wrong, they're in the system, you've done due diligence about their ability to manage this risk. And good companies that have been in your system for some time, even if they buy from someone else, they've got their own internal systems to test, to do a spot check on the materials to see what whether these materials comply, for example, with masks. And I do agree with the previous colleague, I think it was Parks, about the criminality of this is just unbelievable, because not only are we losing money, false billing, overbilling, and overcharging, but we're killing people. Because if you don't do due diligence, you're going into the wild, into the unknown, and somebody can sell you anything and call it what you want to buy. So government should not buy from people who are not in the system. And it's not that we're running short of companies that supply, because they are the people who deal in this. And then the second thing is the issue of people, children of people in government. I disagree with what is attributed to the ANC General Secretary, Mr. Ace Makashule, to say, why shouldn't members of children of people who of children of politicians, why shouldn't they be allowed to trade? They shouldn't be allowed to trade for the state in a manner that exploits their family ties to the state. If, for example, up until COVID-19, you were not trading in PPEs, why should you start trading in PPEs now that there is this? That's where we can see that the only reason you are going to get this tender is because you are linked to someone in government. So if you were in like everyone else and you were working hard, falling and rising, and suddenly there's a big tender that comes, you tried and tested, you have systems to test your produce, then surely you should be considered in the same way as anyone else.
Yeah, and of course, many would wonder then is how are these tenders actually given, although they are so inflated, and there are regulations in place by Treasury to make sure that there are rules which are supposed to be followed. So if it were not for these exposures, people who are involved in these deals would actually get away just like that. And I'll give you an example of a story which I've heard, an allegation not confirmed as yet, but I've heard the way PPE is being supplied to schools. For example, in the case of JoJo tanks for water and sanitation in a specific school which I know of. This is just a story; it's not a confirmed story, but it is often that we hear such stories where these JoJos were supplied at 50,000 Rand each, whereas they could have been procured at much less prices. For example, we could have gotten them at about 10,000 Rand each. So how are they getting away with these with this inflated prices? Why are they not?
Well, the reason they're getting away with this is because there is a system of shared criminality. You see, if somebody does that and then gives kickback to people in the system and to other people in power, it's going to be difficult to take action against them. If people in the system are not getting a share of the the stolen money, it should be very easy. Firstly, the people that need to be accountable is the head of procurement, the CFO, and the DG. Why would you sign up on something that is costing far above what Treasury recommends? For example, one of the articles, I think it was the Sunday Times, that spoke about waste bags, those plastic bags for medical waste, that they retail and wholesale for 65 cents. Treasury already has inflated it 3 times and allows you to inflate your pricing up to 180 Rand. And there's an allegation that somebody sold those things from 65 cents and sold them for 7 Rand. So if you are signing off on a contract and you sign it off as a manager, you've got to look at what does Treasury say about the pricing for this thing, what is being charged, and why is there discrepancy before you put your name on that. And I think until we get the money back from those people, from the people who have been responsible for the losses of this money, it is going to. And I also don't think that it's possible that somebody would just allow you to sell something for 7 Rand that is 65 cents if they're not going to be part of receiving the spoils.
So I guess this issue of shared criminality is such a challenge which needs to be addressed, and I hope it gets addressed soon. But now, while in certain instances, officials have been suspended and investigations have begun, but no one has yet been charged or prosecuted. And that's one of the points which were made by Mr. Matthew Parks earlier on. So what does this tell us about the justice system in South Africa when it comes to crime, to dealing with crimes allegedly perpetrated by elite figures?
I do think that in COVID-19, they are going to create a special kind of court system to make sure that these cases are expedited. I do understand why nobody has been arrested, because you have to do a little bit of a preliminary investigation to decide who to arrest and who not to arrest, because you don't want to blacken people's names wrongfully. So that part I do understand, but I still do think that they need to act swiftly so that we can get this money back, and also boost public confidence. Thirdly, to also make sure that there's no other people who steal, because people feel that if they can't beat them, then they're going to join them. And soon we will find more money is being stolen, whereas actually having this money stolen at this early stage of COVID-19 responses is a gift to us, because it's shown us that there are fault lines. I just want to say one thing, though, is we told government on the 28th of April, because we know this. We told government in our statement and policy brief and said, ensure transparency in your procurement. Tell us weekly, what have you procured, from whom, and for how much? So if this money is gone forever, the people in government should be held accountable for this, because we knew it was going to happen, and we know that sunshine is the best disinfectant. If all of these tenders were above board, if the procurement was on the website and was publicized in a manner that weekly people knew what had been procured from who, I don't think this corruption would have happened.
Mm-hmm. And so now, what steps would be necessary to ensure that corruption does not continue? Is Finance Minister Tito Mbowene's suggestion that processes need to be more transparent? Is that something we should look into?
Absolutely. The Minister of Justice has already done that. He has said that on the tenders that have already been issued, as soon as they receive information from all of the municipalities and government departments on COVID-19 procurement, they will make that information public. And I think that's a brave decision by the Minister of Justice, and this is going to bring light to what's happening. And what I do hope is that from there onwards, every procurement process will be advertised immediately. We'll get to know upfront who's getting it, what's the unit price, and what's the justification for the amount that is above Treasury. They should emphasize what's the unit price, what's the recommended price from Treasury, and why is this tender or this contract costing us above that. And also, if somebody's company has just been formed 2 weeks ago, what has happened to the companies that trade in that area? Or is this service so new or so innovative in such that there isn't anybody? And lastly, they shouldn't allow members of family members to trade, because what we do know, I mean, as an investigator and as a human being, is that actually people use their children as proxies, their cousins as proxies, their wives as proxies, their girlfriends as proxies. So actually you find that you think you're trading with a relative, you're actually trading with the very person who's issuing the tender. And that gives you problems because that person knows the pricing, knows every corner of this tender, and basically they're buying and selling to themselves.
Yeah, that's actually something that needs to be looked into. And now at 7 minutes to 8 p.m. Central African time, we've got to begin wrapping up. We are in conversation with Professor Thuli Madonsela, who is the former Public Protector of South Africa. Now, of course, Professor Madonsela, some would argue that corruption stems from a lack of accountability. Do you think that this is the case?
Well, I would say encouraged by lack of accountability. I don't think lack of accountability is the cause of corruption. The cause of corruption is greed, ill discipline, and sometimes the cause might be need. We say it starts from need to greed. Somebody get involved because they gave 30% of their salary to government as part of the COVID-19 solidarity fund. So now they don't have 30% money to cover their costs. They get involved in a tender and they get the money back. So sometimes, honestly, it starts from need and it ends up with greed.
Accountable, what would be needed for this accountability? What exactly would it take to fix this mess?
We have to improve transparency. That's number one. And the Minister of Justice has already taken that step, and we thank him. The President has appointed a ministerial committee. People are not happy with that. It's a good idea because the ministerial task team is going to do a systems analysis to look at where are the fault lines in the system? How did this happen? And they can immediately close those fault lines whilst proper investigations are being done. And they can also immediately assist to come up with guidelines on what happens going forward. So that's the second thing that has happened, accountability. Even before we look at who stole and who didn't, we have to look at who was supposed to stop these own goals from being scored. And therefore, the DGs, the CFOs, and the heads of procurement need to be held accountable just for failure to do their job. Then we then to the actual people who were responsible for this. And lastly, we must get back the money. Thing takes a long time. The getting back the money is a shorter process. Let's get back the money so that people know that crime may pay temporarily, but it doesn't pay forever. And I think part of the problem with state capture, for example, is that up until now, people are using the very same money that they stole from government to pay people to support them. So we need to make sure that the money is collected as fast as possible.
Yeah, and just on that note, do you have confidence that we can actually get the funds back, the funds that have been stolen in the past? Do you have confidence that they can be returned to the people?
I do have confidence based on Ms. Patohi. I know people are saying, oh, she has taken forever to prosecute the first person. I am supporting her. Rather, don't prosecute anyone than take up a case and then have them dance on your head saying that you prosecuted them wrongfully, they did nothing wrong because the court of law has found them not guilty. But I do think that the system is going to hold people accountable. But I am begging government to pass what is referred to as bounty laws or false claims act. We need a false claims urgently, because that is going to improve social accountability. Me and you are going to be part of the bulwark against corruption. Me, you, and anybody else can make sure that if we see somebody suddenly they are rich, we report this. And if we have a way of finding all of the information and reporting it to a law firm that will investigate properly and then take this matter to the NPA and it gets prosecuted successfully, we get a deal of the money. That will protect whistleblowers and make sure that they get value for their whistleblowing. But secondly, the whole nation is going to be our eyes and ears instead of only relying on institutions, because some of those institutions can be captured or portions of institutions can be captured.
Yeah, but when it comes to these prosecutions, of course, the public is waiting eagerly for such things to happen, because we've seen investigations drag on for years and still no result, as it would seem, as it would appear to the public. So now we just have about a minute left. Your final thoughts for this discussion on corruption?
With regard to prosecution by the NPA, I explained that the new head of the NPA, the new National Director of Public Prosecutions, needed to create a base, an operational base. People who are properly trained in her way of doing business, do proper investigations to create watertight cases, and then prosecute when they're almost certain that they'll win a case. Of course, you can't be 100% sure, because ultimately it's up to the judges to make a decision. But the worst thing is to take it to court and lose it, because the wrongdoer is going to be so happy and go around saying that they were persecuted and not prosecuted. Personally, I am confident that we're turning the corner. And in a very perverse way, I thank those who have stolen COVID monies. And they did so very early in the process, because they've opened our eyes, and we are, as the president says, going to all get into the process, all hands on deck, to make sure that the money that has been taken away, whether stolen or improperly paid, must be paid back. The people who are responsible for this are held accountable. And lastly, we are going to knock at government's door and say, government, we sent you a document on the 28th of April and said, open up this process to improve public social accountability and transparency. You didn't do that, please do so now. As we see it now, there's more procurement that's taking place. Let's make sure that it's all happening transparently. It's all happening transparently. And lastly, let's have those bounty laws.
Indeed. And we'll wrap up with a quick quote from a publication which correctly lamented the state of our nation in an editorial in the Daily Maverick on the 2nd of August, in which this publication read, "Stealing from your own people is a crime, and stealing during the pandemic is a crime against humanity." But unfortunately, that's where we're going to have to leave it for tonight. Thank you so much for your time, Professor Thuli Madonsela.
It's been a privilege. Thank you.
That was Professor Thuli Madonsela, the former Public Protector of South Africa. We were speaking about corruption, especially during COVID-19 pandemic. And before her, we were speaking to Mr. Matthew Parks, who is the parliamentary coordinator at COSATU. And just before that, we had this discussion from a journalistic angle with Mr. Chris Gilili, who is an investigative journalist at Amabungane. Unfortunately, that's where we'll have to leave it for tonight. Thank you so much for tuning in. And of course, thank you to the technical team for the wonderful job again. From myself, Zahid Jadwat, and the team, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.